Hey, what's up guys? My name is Anand and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Google Ads in 2025 and what is the impact of AI and privacy. So these are two different, I would say like trends or changes that are happening within, every account, within every business. As you know, AI is taking over in terms of not only search, but how the information is searched, but it's also impacting advertising. At the same time, there's a lot of like changes happening on the privacy policy and consent management side of things. If you combine those two changes, the way Google Ads are being planned and executed moving forward, that has to change. So in this guide or playbook, I'm gonna show you the AI plus privacy survival playbook, and I will be walking through some practical steps and tactics on what you can do to make sure that you are looking forward in terms of how you can increase your business goals, whether it's leads, conversions, sales, rather than following older tactics that are no longer applicable. So let's get started. All right, so what's really happening in Google Ads? As I mentioned, AI overview in search is actually playing a big role, and this infographic is pretty easy to understand. AI and new formats are actually going to decrease our click-through rate. People are not going to click on the website. People are not going to click on organic links. When you search something on Google, what's going to happen is AI overview is going to summarize and it's going to give you the answer. But what Google says that is ads are now going to be displayed within those AI overviews. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. The other thing or the challenge is in the EU, and if it's starting in EU, it's gonna obviously like other countries are gonna follow suit. But basically, EU is literally cutting off conversion tracking for some advertisers. Now, what they're trying to do is they are implementing stricter consent rules, and this is actually impacting building retargeting audience, conversion tracking, and a lot of other impact from an analytics standpoint, right? So consent and tracking loss is another big area. And if you are still following old tactics, then you have three different changes that's going to completely disrupt how you run ads. So these are the big changes that I wanted to like preface with or give you context on how we are trying to tackle them and solve them. But the good news is that there's a clear path forward, and in this guide, I'm going to show you. All right. So what is the impact on a click through rate standpoint, right? You can see that click through rate is dropping more than 61%, and that's a big impact. And that's also impacting like paid click through rate. So it's not only going to impact your organic side of things, but it's also going to impact your ads. The other big thing is costs are rising across the board. Now, this is the average cost per click for Google Ads is at around $5. I know it's eye opening. Back in the day, or maybe a year or two back, we used to say that the average click through rate, average cost per click is between $2 to $3, but now it's at 5.26, and that's a survey by WordStream that has been done recently. So that's nearly 13% year over year across all industries. So when you are planning for a campaign, keep in mind that you discuss this with your stakeholders and be upfront saying that the costs have gone up, and obviously tracking is an issue, which I will get into a bit. And then obviously privacy policies and privacy rules are blocking data. So the consent mode version 2 started, cutting off conversion tracking and remarketing in July 2025. So obviously what's going to happen is advertisers without proper implementation will face zero conversion tracking. When you have zero conversion tracking, how even your ads are going to optimize? Who is it going to bid for, right? So there's a lot of like, downfall or snowball effect coming out of this. So these forces combine to create a perfect storm. That's what I'm trying to say is higher cost per click, fewer people clicking, which is lower click-through rate, and then complete blindness in terms of consent and modeling infrastructure. That's going to completely mess up your Google Ads campaign. So what's the new Google Ads framework? the first key area that we're going to focus on is restructuring your AI search campaign. The next one is fixing your privacy infrastructure, running a demand gen campaign, and then upgrading your measurement. So let's get started. First area is how do you structure for AI overviews? Basically, what Google says that is you need to run or take advantage of AI based ad campaign in order to be eligible to be shown in AI overviews. So text and shopping ads from search, shopping, and performance max campaign are eligible to be shown in AI overviews. But what Google explicitly says that is that you need to enable AI powered targeting, which is broad match, performance max, or dynamic search ads for these AI experiences to work effectively. Now, very recently, Google also launched AI Max. So that's an example of how it combines, broad match keyword variations, um, depending upon what people are searching using, AI to understand the intent and then dynamically pulling up assets from your landing page to create an ad that will be displayed within AI overview or within the normal search engine results page. So that's how the recommendation is, right? So if you are using the traditional style of like exact match, tightly controlled approach, like single keyword ad group, like no broad match at all, no phrase match, it's not going to work. So that's something you need to think about, right? And the way you do that is you stop paying for top of the funnel tags, which is top of the funnel queries like how to and what is. You're gonna get crushed. Google's AI overview is already going to display them, and there's no way your ads are going to get displayed. So um, more than ads not getting displayed, it's about why would you even bid on those queries, right? It's the waste of money. So don't focus on those top of the funnel queries, but in fact, focus on commercial and transactional queries like near me pricing, software, book, hire, quote, right? Book, I mean, book a quote or book a meeting or book an appointment. So focus on transactional and commercial queries. Embrace broad match with guardrails. So AI Max is an example that I mentioned, but broad match is another way of approaching it. But essentially, what you're doing is you're enabling broad match and you're adding strict negative keywords. So that way, your ads are making sure that it's of high value and relevant, right? So use smart bidding and value-based goals like target cost per acquisition or target return on ad spend, and use broad match and then build AI friendly landing pages. Now, this is when they click on your ad and what happens next, right? So, if your ad is getting shown in AI overviews or if your brand is getting cited in AI overviews, your click through rate is going to skyrocket because they know that they need to visit your page and they are interested in it. So, if you are going to build a good landing page that has strong expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness signal, then you're more likely to convert them, right? So that's basically focus on your landing page. And then I would highly recommend using performance max because with the new update you are now going to get channel level reporting to understand how where your ads were shown across search, YouTube display, and I think Gmail. So make sure that I think Gmail is a part of um, I don't think there's a breakdown for Gmail, but anyways, you will get a channel level reporting, right? So this is again a great way for you to expand your overall exposure using AI based campaign, and performance max uses obviously like smart bidding strategies. So those are like your phase one, or I would say pillar one, right? Next comes what happens after they land on your website. Before even they do anything, it's important to understand consent mode v2 or version 2. It's an API that sits between your CMP, it is consent management platform, and Google. Basically what's going to happen is when someone is going to give you a consent that hey, I accept cookies, right, for example, it's going to pass on that information back to Google. Now there are two critical signals. Number one is ad user data, which is um, it is telling Google that can they use this data for advertising, right? Um, Second one is ad personalization. So can Google use it to personalize the ads? So let's say you're interested in technology, you will be getting more technology related ads, right? That's the ad personalization. Now, this is super important because if you don't pass this information to Google, Google will be like, hey, the user has rejected cookies. I'm not gonna track anything. Even if they fill out the form, I'm not gonna mark that as a conversion. Well, that's a big problem, right? So when consent is denied, Google uses model conversion. So this is another fallback mechanism that uses anonymized signals such as device, country, time of the day to see if they have kind of converted or not. But model conversion is not does not mean that it's an actual conversion. It's just a synthetic way of telling that yes, someone has actually filled out a form. So what you need to do as a brand is implement consent mode V2. And if you are in the EU or if your business operates in the EU, you absolutely need to do that. It's not optional. So again, go through your consent management platform or cookie banner settings and make sure that it's working properly. Implement consent mode V2 if it's advanced or basic, and see if your tags are getting fired properly. Now, I have experience, I've done this before, and in my experience, I can tell you that if the conversion tracking tags or if any of the remarketing pixels are fired before even someone has accepted cookies, that's a problem. So ensure that you're auditing your tag manager and ensure that the tags are getting fired after someone has accepted the cookies, right? And the next thing is prioritize high value conversion. So send Google fewer but better conversion signals like qualified leads, calls, and ensure that higher value conversions are actually passed on to Google. You can also implement like offline conversions to enhance the quality, right? And the third area is like you need to educate decision makers and stakeholders, saying that look, this is a reality. The goal is not pretending that model numbers are perfect. It's a synthetic way of telling that someone is actually converted. And you can even say that we no longer measure every conversion at user level. Instead, we get statistically modeled performance that's good enough to like steer the ship, right? So you need to like educate internally as well, right? So that's why it's important to. That's why I'm discussing about like the impact of like AI and privacy and consent together rather than you know separately, because they both have an effect. And then the other area that I want to focus on, or phase three or pillar three, is how you can use demand generation, right? Google has massively revamped demand gen, and this is one good way of minimizing your cost. We discussed about the average cost per click going high, click through rate going down. Overall, it's getting expensive, but you can actually still run demand gen campaign through Shots, Discovery, Gmail, and Display, because Google has introduced new tools and major upgrades that allow, as I mentioned, channel level reporting. It allows you to run ads on YouTube Shorts and even like different creative formats. This is going to allow you to build that top of the funnel audience, which you can then retarget down the funnel, that will ultimately reduce your cost per acquisition. So that's the goal, right? You can map the creative based on the journey, make shots that are always on in the lab, and then build that retargeting audience and push them down the funnel. So I'm not gonna go too much into this detail, but this is more about an update from Google in terms of how demand gen has evolved, and this is completely different than what you used to be in the past. All right. And finally, once you have everything done and it's time for reporting, make sure that you focus on cost per, like it's more about like what's the new way of reporting, right? So focus on cost per qualified lead or opportunity. You need to go beyond, cost per lead, because Qualified opportunity is a better measurement because you're now taking signals and feedback from your sales team. Also focus on blended cost per acquisition across different channels. Don't treat every platform separately because many brands are now being omni-channel. They want to have a presence on Meta, LinkedIn, Google. So try to combine the metrics and figure out your blended cost per acquisition rather than just focusing on Google, for instance. And then there's a difference between modeled versus observed conversion. As I mentioned, clearly label which conversions are observed and which are modeled, which are statistically inferred. So that way you know which one you need to prioritize, and if there is any data, discrepancy between the two types, right? Demand gen contribution to branded search. So track how demand gen is helping you to increase your search volume, and work on channel mix scenario. So that's, overall, to summarize, restructure a campaign, fix consent and tracking, build demand gen, and then update your reporting. Um, and finally, what one last message I would say is don't run 2021 strategy in 2025. Um, Things have evolved a lot, and these are real challenges that you need to be aware of. And I'm hoping that you learned one or two things from this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.